Get started. Welcome to our little game that we call Frenemies. So, frenemies are people who admire and respect and like and maybe even love each other, but nevertheless ended up voting for the wrong president. Okay. But this is important to remember. Compliance and agreement are really not required in this game. Frenemies are people who have learned how to stay friends, how to keep their viewpoints and still keep the conversation going. So, Frenemies game is inspired and powered by three practice circles. So the three practices are: one, I'll be unusually interested in others; number two, I'll stay in the room with difference; and three, I'll stop comparing my best with your worst. Frenemies starts with what we call a frame. Our frame for this circle is: are we on the brink of disaster or what? Our head ref will review the other rules. Our head ref tonight is Tabitha, so take it away, Tab.
All right. Have you ever played a game that has no rules? An oxymoron, right? For example, if you don't want to play by the rules, forget basketball, Monopoly, or even Wordle, which is why we like to say the rules save us. So here are the rules for frenemies. First, each frenemy gets up to 2 minutes to respond to the frame. During that time, no one may interrupt, talk over, or otherwise draw attention away from whomever's speaking. Next, after the presenter is done, anyone in this circle may ask a clarifying question, and the frenemy will get up to 1 minute to respond. Reminder, you can ask any question you like. You may or may not get the answer you want. Also, if someone asks a frenemy a follow-up question and they're not ready to answer, it's fine for them to say they want to give it more thought. So here are some examples of what a non-clarifying question sounds like. First, WTF, not clarifying question. I can't believe you just said that. That makes me think of an experience I had that then goes into a longer question. Or even repeating, well, you said, and when you said that, I thought we don't need a recap. We're looking for clarifying questions, brief and to the point. In order to help you start with a clarifying question, we require each and every time that you ask a question, you begin that phrase with the phrase, I'd be curious to know. So if you can, real quick, please unmute yourself. And on the count of three, repeat, I'd be curious to know with me. 1, 2, 3. I'd be
I'd be
I
curious
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 to
to
know.
to
know.
know. Perfect. You may forget to do that, or maybe if your clarifying question starts to wander, in which case I, the ref, because that's my title, will interrupt with something like, hey, something like, can you start over and begin with I'd be curious to know, please? Or see if you can ask this question in half the words, or could you help us find the question you're asking, please? After several frames, we'll end the game with thank yous. We'll clarify the rules as we go along. Let's welcome tonight's frenemies, Josh and Jim Henderson. Welcome. All right. We were gonna flip a coin, but we did not find an app that would do that cool and digitally for us. So Josh gets to go first tonight.
I may, before you start, remind people this, unlike many circles, this circle is being recorded and is going to be shared publicly. And so if you prefer to remain anonymous, you can turn off your video feed, change your name or whatever. But I just want to give you a heads up of that. Okay?
All right.
Jim,
You
What
should
Pete,
should
Pete?
we be should we be muted during this and then only click on when it's time we want to speak? Is that the best way to go? Okay.
Yep. Thanks for asking.
I would say yes. All right. Ready, Josh? Oh,
Sure.
Josh. Sorry.
Ready to go? All right.
Yep.
What was the question again? Just kidding. Are we in the brink of a disaster? Honestly, I haven't really, I haven't thought, I've been opening a restaurant. I haven't thought about the election since, well, about a month ago. And really have not been in this space, this headspace, which is, so it's interesting to dip into this space, headspace, because I haven't really thought much, at least about whatever impending disaster everyone is thinking is happening, or could happen. But I actually think the opposite. I think we're actually on the brink of some pretty amazing times. I think some of it has to do with, I think that I actually believe that the administration that's going to be coming in will be have a chance to make changes, good or bad, but they'll have the chance to make changes at a very rapid rate, right out of the gate. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have hope that they'll be positive. And I don't really, but ultimately I don't know if I really care. But I think that I don't have a disaster feeling about the next 4 years. I think we're in a time in history and also in our world where Donald Trump obviously is going to be president, and a lot of people maybe 40% of the country are not happy about that. But I think there's more important things happening though around the world just in general. I think we're going to be entering into a time where there's greater levels of consciousness. I think there's going to be greater levels of just our connectedness to spirituality and the earth. And that's probably a different direction than you would think to go with this Donald Trump thing, but I think it's all connected. So to answer the question, no, I don't think we're on the brink of a disaster. I guess we always are in some case, but I think we're on the brink of beauty.
Thank you, Joshua, for getting us started. Is there anyone who has a clarifying question they'd like to ask Joshua, starting with, I'd be curious to know. Dan, I see your hand.
Josh, I'd be curious to know if what you think is the best way to keep those that challenge the results of the election focused on the issues, which is border, economy, crime, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
What folks are you talking about? That could you rephrase the question or repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I would be curious to know that for the people that challenge that they don't want Trump running this place, that the focus is on the borders, security, the economy, and crime.
Yeah, I think you're asking how do we just not distract? How do we divert the subject to productivity versus as opposed to relitigating the past? I would imagine that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
My feeling on that is that I think success makes a lot of people quiet. And so if we can go out there and be successful and, as a country, whatever that means to people, I mean, the term success in this country, I think is felt differently by everybody. And so we don't have a real cohesive sense of success in this country. I think because there's certain people that feel it and other people that don't. So I think that to keep people focused on the border or whatever it is that we feel like we need to be focused on as a country, I think we have to do it through positivity and also through success. I don't think that they're gonna. The mainstream media is going to continue the narrative because they need to, but I don't think that. I just think they're going to slowly wither away. And I guess I don't have an answer to it, but I just think it has to come from success.
Thank you. Dan, did you have a follow-on question?
Yeah, so I would be curious to know when people bring up issues of the focus on, for example, Greenland or the Panama Canal and the acquisition, as opposed to, again, the issues. What's the best way to help bring people back to what the real issues are first and foremost, to give that success a chance to be a success?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that people have to kind of accept Trump for what he is. There needs to be almost like a Trump filter. So I think you need to just sort of, and it's really hard for people to accept the fact that he says things, ironically, that people think he's blowing smoke, but he's usually if you actually dig into what he's saying, there's truth in all of it. It may not be ever someone else's truth, but it certainly is truth. And so I don't really know how to help people honestly get out of their way around, Trump, or how they hear him, or the things that bother them about Trump. Because I think it really is just an issue of style and semantics. Because if you had somebody else, if you had, Michelle Obama saying these things, everyone would be pumped. But it's Trump, and so they don't like him, and they never will. And so I don't know. I don't know how to help people like that. I think that's purely a decision people have to make on their own. There's nothing I'm going to do that's going to convince them. That's for sure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Okay, I think it was Pat, and then we'll go to Quanta.
Yes. Hey, Josh.
Hi.
Thank you for going first for us. I am curious to know about what you are anticipating as amazing things happening. What amazing things are you looking for to happen?
I am hopeful around RFK and some of the health things that will be, at the very least, that hard conversations hopefully will be had. Who knows what will happen, but at least the conversations will be just talked about, and we'll be talking about vaccines. We'll be talking about health of our kids. We'll be talking about go down the list, why we're the sickest country in the world, but we spend the most on healthcare. So I mean, all those things I hope will have some impact. I don't know what, but I'm hopeful around that. And I also hope that we have a section of time that where we can have a little pride about who we are, and be a little bit of like excited about the fact that we live in this country instead of bummed. And that we have a pretty amazing place that we live, and we live with amazing people that are all around us. And so that would be my hope, is that becomes exemplified in some way.
Thank you, Josh. Pat, did you have a follow-on?
Yes, on another vein, I'd be curious to know what changes. You said they would be happening rapidly. So what changes would you like to see happen first?
Oh man. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really too concerned about speed. I think that I would really, I just want to see RFK confirmed. That would be a first step at least. And I think that if in the first 100 days, for me, it's the border obviously is going to be a big one for people. I obviously probably have mixed feelings on that, but I think it has to sort of be around health, around food, around I don't know, the vaccine. That to me feels a little bit like water under the bridge, but it certainly is still being. I can't believe that there's advertisements on TV for it. It just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. So I mean, maybe we could start with just getting maybe pharmaceutical ads off TV. We could start there. That'd be amazing. But I don't know. There's a lot of things.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Quanta, you are next with your clarifying question.
Thank you very much. Joshua, I'm curious to know, what did you mean by at the end of your talk, you said it's not disaster, but you are seeing beauty. Could you please elaborate what do you mean? What do you mean by beauty?
Well, I mean, this isn't really connected. This is to Trump in any way, but I just think that we're in a time in our world where, like I was alluding to a little bit, is that I think that there's going to be a raised consciousness and a raised connection to spirituality. And I think that there's going to be people who choose that, and people who choose fear, and choose to be afraid. And so I think we're going to have amazing, I think, chaos, and I think amazing craziness happening in the next 10, 20, 30 years of this world. But I think conversely, because we live in a world that's full of duality and polarity, that I think there's also going to be just equally as much beauty. And that's what I would choose to focus on.
Thank you. Follow-up, Quanta?
Yes, Joshua, I'd be curious to know now, what do you mean by craziness? What kind of craziness has been happening in the last 60 years since Second World War with wars and spending on military, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just craziness all the time in this world. But I think that we're going to be, I think there's just there's big physical things potentially happening in the world from an Earth perspective. Whether you choose to believe it or not, but there's, the magnetic pole shift. There's lots of things that are going on in this planet that, could end up causing our world to be radically different. But I think that, I'm in a belief system, but I believe that Earth is connected magnetically to us as humans. And so we're all this energy, and we're all, as we get crazier and crazier in our freneticness on this Earth, it's connected to the world. I believe that it's all connected. And so I think we're going to see that increase over this next sort of section of time. And it's, I don't know how else to say it other than that. That's just what I believe. And I don't mean like some end times. I just think that, it could be, but I don't really think of it that way. I think of it as I actually think it's going to be pretty incredible. So I'm not afraid of it. I think it's going to be full of beauty.
Thank you. Thank you, Quanta. Matt, we'll go ahead and take you next with your clarifying question.
Josh, thank you, man. I appreciate this, and I appreciate you. Really spectacular. I'm curious to know, and you just touched on it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I'm curious to know how we connect the Trump administration with Earth consciousness.
Yeah. I think I really think that whole world, it's just because I'm so visible in it, or I'm watching it constantly on YouTube and podcasts and whatever else. It's all interconnected. I mean, you got the UFC, and you've got Trump, and then you've got UFC, and then podcasts and Joe Rogan, and like it's just like this mishmash of all these people that are connected in a way. And I believe that all this Earth consciousness stuff, that I believe inherently is going to be vastly increasing in this next section of our lives. All these people connected to him are in that world, or at least are connected to somewhat of that world. I mean, RFK is like right in the center of it. And so my hope is that he's going to be somebody that is also championing that piece as well. Because I mean, I would argue that we should get meditation in schools for our kids starting from 0 on up. I mean, we have major issues with our kids. And so anyways, I just, I'm hopeful that RFK, even like Tulsi, those folks, but I think that he's open to it. He's so open to it. I know people think he's this buffoon, but he is so open to it.
Thank you. I lost my train of thought. Matt, did you have a follow-on question?
No, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take Karen for clarifying questions for Josh, and then we're going to have to switch over to Jim in fairness of the game and give time. So Karen, go ahead with your clarifying question.
Hey, Josh, I'd be curious to know, as a restaurant owner, what were the most important issues for you at the poll when you voted?
I didn't vote as a restaurant owner. I voted as a father and a husband. So I don't know how to answer that question, honestly. I think that they would affect me, but immigration could affect me. I mean, a tip credit would be friggin' amazing. That would affect me deeply. But I wouldn't vote for somebody based on one thing.
Right.
I don't. So yeah, I don't. That wasn't my motivation. I think that none of the restaurant stuff doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's all it's inconsequential to, I think, bigger things that are happening in our world. And not that I just like it doesn't matter. But it's not who I would choose our world to be led by. Anyways, so
Okay.
Thank you. Colin?
My follow-up is like totally ADHD, but I'd be curious to know if you could explain the difference to you of spirituality and religion.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think religion was meant to keep us from spirituality, but I think that was the real reason religion was created. But spirituality is what you feel in your body. It's everything. It could be walking down the street and seeing a bird. It could be hearing your kid say something beautiful. It could be hearing a song. It could be in a church. It could be anything. I think spirituality is what you feel within your body and you feel within your mind, and how that then can connect to really literally every element in this world. And I think spirituality ultimately is love. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone who asked clarifying questions. We are going to move to the alternate side. So that would be Mr. Jim. That is your time. I'm also switching my timer to be one on the screen because apparently you guys can't hear the sound
Right.
of
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All yours, Jim.
All right. So the disaster word is helpful because it creates a kind of a wider frame for consideration um, of are we, the United States of America, on the brink of disaster? So that's kind of an unknown because we're certainly, in my opinion, sliding toward it, but that's been going on for quite a while. In fact, humanity is sliding toward, uh, for really almost 70,000 years, migrating more and more toward authoritarianism and strong people because let's face it, it's kind of scary here. At times, if the reason people thought the earth was flat at one point was because it feels flat. And it also would be really super convenient if it was flat, because then there's no such thing as imagining where it's sitting on top of an egg, spinning around at 25,000 miles an hour. That's a little disconcerting. So there's a lot of fear in humanity. So I'd say that as a democracy, we've always fought. The original founders were partisans who fought with each other, lied about each other, and then created alliances together. And so we have a history of this drama. I also think that those of us who grew up adjacent to World War II have a very different experience of life than those who were not, because we all had first-person encounters with people running around in uniforms under the threat of Nazism and so on. That's all actually real and visceral, difficult to forget about. And so I think that we are sliding that way, and democracy is very fragile. Really can't see the clock much, Tabitha. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah,
very
7 seconds.
it's very fragile. Maybe switch it to black and white or something like that. And so we're at the risk of I'm being taken off stage now. Hey, wait a minute. Wait, I have an objection. That was not my frenemies experience. They weren't counting them down, but I really like the effect. I want to keep that, but I need black and white. So, okay.
I get it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next time we'll have a better production details.
Is there anyone who has a clarifying question they'd like to ask Jim? Yep. Go ahead, Karen. Kick us off here.
Jim, I'd be curious to know where the frenemies came from because you don't appear to be that far off from each other.
You haven't asked me detailed questions. Keep asking. We have very distinctly different political views that I'm happy to answer, but I'm not going to, offer just randomly because that's all I can say about that. Try again, maybe.
Would you like a clarifying question to ask something different, Karen?
Well, he didn't really answer. I'd be curious to know if you could share one political issue that you really are opposing on.
I think RFK is a really dangerous idea, and uh, and I'm alarmed that he, along with other people, have been placed, and that they've been placed in a position adjacent, and that Elon Musk is essentially making a lot of decisions for a country now, and he bought his way next to the president. How am I doing so far? And he also gets tons of contracts from the government. Of course, these things would never enter his mind, I'm sure, because he's an honest guy and Joe Rogan loves him. And that means we're all good because Elon's going to take us to space. I do admire the fact that he was able to get a rocket to land on its tail. You got to hand him that. That was awesome. But I think he bought that from somebody else. So, so yeah, there's all sorts. I can't see the clock. Where are we? Those are just a couple of things. Of course, Donald Trump's a complete joke. Doesn't belong in the presidency. How's that?
Okay, thank you. That's your minute. Thank you, Karen. So I have Matt, then Dan, then Pat. So just wanting to make sure everybody understands. I see you. You're here. Or rather, yeah. So Matt, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate this, and I appreciate you as well. I'd be curious to know, given all that you've said, is there someone that you think would be the right person to lead us in the right direction at this time?
That's very kind of you to ask. No one comes to mind. I just like my chances better with one group than the other. I think that's really a lot of elections are about that. I'm not enamored with. I don't. No one in either party strikes me as that's visible. Strikes me as a leader. They strike me as hustlers. They strike me as politicians. They strike me as bureaucrats. But leaders are very rare to show up in politics because they're not going to put themselves out there. I mean, so people exhibit charisma, those kinds of things, and so that we confuse that with leadership a lot of times because they can give a speech, for example. We call that oratorical leadership or charisma. So there's all sorts of people with that kind of stuff. But people willing to actually sacrifice themselves for the good of the country, they're just I mean, Jimmy Carter probably got the closest to anybody, really, honestly, in my opinion. But he wasn't going to make it because we don't like people like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. We're going to go to Dan next with your clarifying question.
Did Matt have a follow-up question?
I thought he did. Did you not? Did I
Dan,
miss it?
you read my mind. I appreciate that. I was just saying, shoot, I have a follow-up
sorry.
question.
No, my apologies. Go ahead. Go for
it. Jim, do you think that I'd be curious to know? Sorry, I have to get my process straight here. I'd be curious to know, do you think that our two-party system really allows for the right people to come forward, or do you think it's a hindrance?
So I think this is a really interesting question. I'm probably not going to be alive to watch this, but I think really Donald Trump has started a third party. I think any thoughtful Republican has got to admit that. He's basically kicked them out and made them become something else. But got to hand it to him. And it came as a surprise. But I think pretty much smart MAGA people ought to keep going with Trump after he's gone and JD Vance, whatever else, from a marketing perspective. However, the thought I do have a lot of I wonder about the parliamentary system being more effective because it does reduce to some degree the visibility of the executive or the star. We love charismatic people here. And so I don't hate the idea. I would be very open. Also, you have to do more compromising because part of the problem in our system right now is all black and white. And that's just not real. None of us live a life like that. We all have to strike deals with each other and give up something. And so I'd like to see more of that, a system where that was, allowed, encouraged.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. All right, Dan, it's really your turn this time.
Jim, I'd be curious to know how much positive change would you need to see, and in what areas that would cause you to rethink your position?
Really good question. Um, First of all, I have to be willing to be open, right, to that possibility. So that's going to take a little bit of work based on my attitude. Just throwing that out there. Um, uh, I I don't know what Trump's just a non-starter permanently for me. So that's I'm not going to pay attention to him. He's just incredibly selfish. And so, however, if someone in the system came up with something positive. I don't think that I think big pharma is whoever wants to pick that fight, I'm on your side. I think they're all being bought by big pharma, every damn person, politician, everyone. And so with that in mind, I don't hold out a lot of hope, but I would like to see some bravery exhibited. That would be fun. That would totally get my attention. If I saw somebody take on big pharma meaningfully and not being bought, I would have to say, good point. Where are you going to go with it? So that's one point that's a possibility.
Thank you.
And my follow-up question would be, I'm curious to know if you saw crime, removal of immigrants that were absolute criminals, and securing of borders, and the control of the fentanyl. How much of an impact would that have on your opinion?
Because it's primary. Okay, that's a great, fair question. Difficult for me to answer because I think that's largely been marketed by the right wing. However, if there are illegal immigrants and all of that, criminals particularly, I'm not going to stand in the way of that happening. It's going to, of course, sweep over into other people. Immigration is a larger problem that both parties have kicked back and forth to each other for political benefits, in my opinion. Nobody's ever meaningfully tried to deal with it. This is a really dramatic way to do it, of course. It won't play out the way it's being pitched, but nobody will care because it doesn't matter. Um, so the crime part, I'm not as convinced that that's an issue as my friends on the right are. But I wouldn't stop, a criminal immigration from happening and all of that. But it's going to get mixed up with a lot of other problems. There's a problem, and parties don't talk to each other, so we can't negotiate something reasonable.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Pat is going to be up next with her round of clarifying questions. But before we go there, lots of questions going on, and we have a second frame we're going to try to get to in this pilot of trying to figure out how this game works here with Frenemies. So Pat's going to be the last one for this round, and then we'll move on to our next frame. So go for it, Pat, with your clarifying question.
Okay, Jim, I'd be curious to know, I was going to give you a chance to answer the same questions your son did. What amazing thing would you like to see happen right off? Just that you would like to see happen.
What amazing thing. What the hell? Well, it would be really interesting. This sounds snarky, but I'm sorry, but to see Trump behave like a statesman, that would be interesting. Just to show up and have some nerve to be polite in public instead of always having to draw attention to him. That would be amazing. I can't even imagine it. He didn't show up for Biden's inauguration. What would the effect be if they didn't show up for his? Uh, Something like that, something that gives America a sense of character and leadership and integrity. It's more than just about show business or him getting the spotlight. That would be amazing. I use that word because I can't imagine him acting like that. So I don't expect to see it.
Thank you. Follow on, Pat?
Yes. I'd be curious to know, what do you think about, aside from his, I forgot how your son described him. His style and semantics. Let me put it that way. Aside from his style and semantics, what do you think of a businessman rather than a politician being in the highest office in the land? Do you think it'll make a difference?
Well, again, he's not. That's all I can say. He's not a businessman. He's failed numerous times. He's been propped up. Again, it would be really awesome if somebody around him admitted this, what everybody knows. Say, well, hey, that's a comeback story or something like that. But he's not a businessman. I mean, he's not. So there's nothing, I don't know how to respond to that because I don't take him seriously at all in that regard. He's a hustler. He really should be I'm sorry. In my estimation, where Trump really shines is in worldwide wrestling. What he really knows is that entertainment is the most trusted institution in the world today, because basically science, education, finance, government, all those things as institutions have been ignored and have brought it on themselves. They've brought on criticism. The things that people are criticizing Democrats for are deserved because it was all brought on by people that have a grievance against things that didn't happen. And it was largely because of that. So
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, we're gonna switch it up. I'm gonna flip it over to Fred for the last frame round.
All right, so we're going to do another frame round, and this frame right here, this is what we're going to put out. And the frame, I just threw it up to everyone, is here's something my frenemy might be seeing that I'm not wanting to see. I'll say that again. Here's something that my frenemy might be seeing that I might not want to see. So we didn't get a chance to flip the coin, but since Jim, you just went, so I'm going to give it back to you, Josh. You got 2 minutes. I'm going to say it one more time, give you time just to kind of get those thoughts.
let me just cut in here, just so we have time. We want to keep to an hour. So let's maybe Josh and I do this segment, then we go to thank yous. Okay. What do you think about that? All right, whatever you guys call. Okay, here we go.
So here we go. Okay, 2 minutes. Here's something my frenemy might be seeing that I am not wanting to see. Go for it, Jay.
You're
muted, John. Son.
You're muted.
I'll
give you those 7 seconds, sir.
I'm not entirely sure of the question.
Let me go first, all right? Then I think you get a drift of where I'm going. Okay, here's some things that, you ready? Why don't we keep this to a minute? Why don't we keep this to a minute, Fred? We're making this up, as you can see, folks. And then maybe time for some. I'd be curious to know before we go to thank you. So
I'm gonna give you your 3 seconds back. Go for it, Jay.
Thank you. I think Josh might be right about the vaccine, the whole drug vaccine thing. I'm intrigued to watch if something gets done there. I don't trust RFK. However, that doesn't mean he won't be able to bump into something that's real. You know, they may be uncovering something there that's real. I'm curious about that. I also think young people, that's almost everybody younger than me in my world. Younger people have a very different, necessarily view the world in a way that's different than I would. And so I could be blind to seeing some things as a result of that, simply because of my age, my biases, my experience, my life experience. How am I doing? That's it. Yeah, those are a couple of things.
Very good, very good, very good. Thank you very much. Does anyone have a follow-up question or a clarifying question for Jim?
Fred, I'm going to make a call.
Want to go straight to Josh?
Let's go to Josh. Yeah, let's
go to Josh. Josh, so does it make sense, Josh? You there?
Yeah.
You ready?
I think it's similar in the sense that I would be concerned. I mean, I think there's a lot of generational stuff here in a way. I when I hear the questions, I start laughing that you're asking him because I just know the answer, that there's nothing that's going to get him to see anything positive about Trump. And then I think about that, about how if I had that feeling about somebody, what would cause me to want to feel or to like, how could I see something beautiful in somebody that I felt such hatred towards, or felt such dismissiveness, or whatever the word is, that is just this person is a non-person in this person's mind, is what it feels like. And that goes for a large swath of people in this country. That just like, you're never going to reach them. So I think it's generational. And I think that for me, it would be, am I not seeing something like when he calls Trump Hitler? Am I missing that? Is Trump Hitler? And I don't think so, but that would be the thing. I would be like, generational stuff would be the thing I'd be worried about around that idea of what I'm missing because of people who are older and seen it before.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Josh. So,
Yeah.
either one, do you have any clarifying questions for each other first before we open it up to everyone?
Me to him?
Yeah.
Why don't we, I'm going to make a call here, Fred.
Yeah.
Why don't we, let's go to thank yous and explain what we do, why we end with thank yous and so on.
Sure,
Because I
sure.
think
So
we
in
need some
Fren-
time for that. Yeah.
Sure. In Frenemies, just like in our regular three practice circles, we end with thank yous. And this thank yous are particularly for if anyone said anything that you heard or saw that stood out to you, specifically if they followed the three rules, the three particular that they stayed in the room with difference, that they practiced kindness, they decided not to use someone's best against someone's worse. If you saw something like that, or just something that just stood out to you, that we like to end with thank you. So if anyone sees anything and would like to bring out something, this is your opportunity. I see Dan's hand.
So, Jim and Josh, I want to thank you both, the father and son team that's willing to wade into this. But really what I'd like to appreciate is I think it was totally unscripted. It was almost impromptu for both of you. So the good news is, if it's not unscripted, you also don't have talking points that you don't want to not answer questions with. You only want to repeat talking points. Thank you.
Thank you. It's clearly unscripted.
Well said, Matt. I see your hand, Matthew.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you both for your candid approach to this, and I believe that these kinds of discussions and forums can do nothing but help us all. So thank you both for your willingness to do this, and I want to come to a family dinner sometime.
Burgers, man. The burgers are good. Karen, I see your hand.
So I want to thank Josh for a couple things. I want to thank you for saying that spirituality is love. I love that. And I hear your mom in that answer a little bit. And then honestly, for sharing your views on the world and the environment, I have to say that's the first time I've ever had a discussion with somebody on the other side who talked about the world and wanting to protect it and be good. So that was really refreshing to me, but also just for you to, I love this format because so many people say I couldn't love somebody if they voted for Trump, or I couldn't be friends with them, or I'd have to cut them out of my life, whatever it is. And you just show us that you can still love somebody and be on, and have opposing views. And we do need to see more of that. So thank you.
That's good. Anyone else? I see Quanta.
Well, I really, really am so grateful to see father and son from different camps. You are a true representative of braver angels. I think you would be a star there. You should really get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pat, I see your hand.
I think it was a treat to have the father-son duo there, and I'd like to see them take up some more subjects, as a matter of fact, if they would do that. But I particularly appreciated Joshua's comment about the people that are unfavorable to Trump, that it's actually more a matter of style and semantics. And I thought, well, if I can just get my head around that and remember those words, it's just style and semantics that I'm upset about. That'll help me through this. And then, Jim, I appreciated so much your comments about the generational differences. But you expressed it by saying that one generation has had an experience. You have experienced something like this that a younger generation hasn't experienced, and that was good. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'd like to say thanks to everyone that started working on this and cooking this up. Jim, thank you for being bold enough to just like something such as sacred, supposedly, as three practice circles. Like we've all been a part of them for years now, and we love it and we know the way it goes. So to change up the rules and switch it around and say, hey, let's do something different. This was fun. And I think it's a great way to look at just some new ways to do it. So thank you guys both for always figuring out how to do something different and be new and be innovative and give room for people just that may have a different way of viewing some things. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank all of you guys for showing up and being here and participating on this pilot trial run of something new. Appreciate all the participation, and yeah, we're gonna do it again. So hopefully you'll all show up again.
So I would
Very
like to thank my son for agreeing to do this. We've started talking about it about 6 months ago, and then it just took several iterations and different things coming and going, but he stuck with it the whole time. So I'm grateful, and
Trump had to win first for me to do it. So
that's true. That's true. We're going to do trash talk now. Okay, so I know I obviously love my son very much. I'm proud of him, and I'm honored that he would do something like this with me as a dad. And I appreciate people here who had varying degrees of views differently, had emotional experiences while we were talking, trying to get a grip on different things that you're trying to understand. And I appreciate you being here. And as Tabitha said, we're going to actually do this another circle in 2 weeks. If you go to your chat, if you can check in the chat to everyone, Frenemies, this is season 1, episode 2 coming up. Yes, I voted for so-and-so, and this is going to feature Fred Lynch and his friend Darius. Fred,
it's actually my friend, his name is Darren.
Darren. Okay,
Darren.
Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about what's unique about that particular
Sure. My friend Darren, we've been knowing each other for over 35 years. His wife introduced me to my wife. And so we all go way, super way back and are all very good friends. I voted for Harris. He voted for Trump. And right afterwards, I called and said, man, you were right. I was wrong. And we talked about it. And we've always been friends. We've had our political views differently, and some even some religious views that are different now. And so we have a good time chopping it up. He's not afraid of being completely open and honest and tell the truth how he sees it, and neither am I. And we love each other for that, but we bump heads because that's just what we do. We've been knowing each other long enough to where we don't, try to have to play nice, but we can keep it honest and keep it real. So I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with my man.
Are you telling me
love for you guys
Are you telling me, Fred, you have a black friend who voted for Trump?
Say what now?
Are you telling me you have a black friend who voted for Trump?
Oh, it gets deeper. I got several black friends that vote. I got a black pastor friend that, yeah, I got several.
So that's what's coming up Wednesday, the 22nd, same time. There's the registration link if you want to register now in that. You may think you have a frenemy that if you're interested in letting me know, I'll get to that part, Alex. Thanks for the question. If you have a frenemy, somebody that that you like, respect, admire, you may not even be in a relationship with them, but you may be able to get in a connection with them. Send me your story, and we're interested in platforming other relationships like this. because we think it's possible, we think it's necessary to attempt to stay in the room at difference and not compare ourselves with each other's, our best with other people's worst. And that's what this is about. There are more 3 practice circles coming up. If you're interested in that, there's a link for that. And I think that's all the promos we need to do about that. But we do a little thing afterwards called the after party. This recording will be made available. I'll let you know once it's up and posted, so you can share it. It's public property. And if it's of interest to you, we'll be doing 2 more of these. Tabitha will bring in a friend in the first part of February and be doing something similar as well. And if people are interested, we'll do more of it. And if not, we won't. But thank you all for being here. Like I said, I'll send you a message hopefully in the next couple of days about where to get the link for the recording. So with that, we're going to close this little game and go into what we call the after party. And the after party is where you can, ask people where they're from and that type of thing. However, we don't relitigate what we just went through. Because it would just go on for hours. And so we're not going to do that. So we'll stick around for the after party if you want to talk to somebody. And if you don't want to stick around, you can take off now. And really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much.